This meeting of the Starkville Board of Aldermen will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Alderman Maynard would like to open us in a word of prayer, and we'll observe a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today, Lord, and thank you for the continued opportunity to serve you, Lord. Appreciate the blessings on our city, and want to ask during this holiday season, Lord, to protect our city workers and their families, protect all of our citizens traveling, and protect them on their safe return home. Guide us in your will, Lord, and be with each and every one of us. Amen.
All right, I would like to remind everybody, if you've not already done so, to please power down or silence your cell phones. Board members, you now have before you a copy of the written agenda. Are there any proposed revisions to the agenda as written?
Let me recognize, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Vaughn.
Up on the board business. Item B, consider nomination appointment to Richard Curry to the Heritage Museum Committee. Move to consent.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place item 10B, appointing Richard Corey to the Heritage Museum Committee for the vacant 3-year term set to expire on September 30th, 2016 to the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision? Do we hear any objection? Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, no objection. I'd like for the city clerk just to make some comments very briefly for the record as to what is the position of the incumbent, what contacts, if any, so we can get that on the record of the person who is now serving that position.
Yes, Vice Mayor. We've spoken with both the folks at the Heritage Museum, the director of the Heritage Museum. We've spoken with the gentleman's secretary. We've left 2 voicemails just today for the gentleman, and we've had no response or any indication of interest in remaining on the board.
Mr. Mayor, I concur with this going to consent. Yes, sir.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revisions?
Yes, sir. Up on the High Police Department, I don't want to do anything, but Mr. City Attorney, did this make your approval?
The contracts?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. They are identical to the previous lease agreements that we negotiated last time around, so they're identical.
We'll leave it on consent. I yield, Mr. Mayor.
Any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? Are there any?
May we pull the work session minutes, the city attorney and I just concurred the work session minutes for November 26th. Need a little work. Can we table those?
All right, the clerk has recommended the work session meeting for the strategic planning meeting of November 26th. Minutes be pulled without objection. We're going to pull them. Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those have been pulled from the agenda. And I do have one other potential revision to offer, and that is the item for sanitation. That's item 11K1. Needs to be worded a little tighter. It needs to be consideration of approving the advertisement for the sale of 2 2010 25-yard rear loader garbage trucks, and the advertisement to lease purchase 2 25-yard rear loader garbage trucks. Is there any objection to that?
That's not on consent, is it, Mayor?
It is not on
Okay,
consent.
okay, thank you.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, note the change to your agenda. Any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? Alderman Maynard.
Mayor, under Personnel H4, I would like to amend that to state move approval to authorize Mr. Randy Boyd to schedule interviews for the position of CAO with Mr. Taylor Adams, Mr. Andrew Ellard, and Mr. Michael Anderson for January 7th, 2014, beginning at 4 o'clock in the City Hall boardroom. And then move that to consent.
And I see you have a writing. Is that the motion?
It is, yes, sir.
Could you place that with the clerk?
Andrew what? The second.
Ellard.
Ellard.
As the proposed revision has been read and reduced to writing without objection, I will not reread it. Any objection? All right, seeing none. Is there any objection to placing that matter as stated and written by Alderman Maynard on the consent agenda? Any
No, sir, but I
objection?
got a question for Alderman Maynard. Did those three individuals meet all the minimum education requirements and experience?
Yes, sir.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Any further proposed revisions to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, if I could see that holiday schedule real quickly for 2014.
All right, is the holiday schedule not included in the packet?
I didn't see it.
It should have been, it's all the days that we have this year with the exception of Veterans Day and Columbus Day.
Mr. Boyd, do you have a hard copy by any chance? Could you come
I don't have
forward?
an objection, I just want to take a quick look at it, that's all.
It's exactly the same days from this year.
Mayor, just let us indulge for just a moment, I just want to take a quick
Mr.
look
Boyd,
at
if you
it.
could approach and present to Alderman Perkins.
Thank you, just hold on, Mr. Boyd. And Mr. Clerk, what's the difference again?
The difference is this year we have Veterans Day.
We don't have veterans
And
anymore.
we moved it to Columbus Day just so that there's September, October, November instead of being closed 2
That's
days in
all different.
November. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I'm fine, that's good, thank you.
All right. Any further proposed revisions?
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
This relates to mayor's business, number A, or letter A, the resolution. The resolution specifically references Exhibit A and Exhibit B. And for the record, I want to make sure, since it's about to go on consent, that it's noted that these are at the table when I'm handing them to the city clerk.
Thank you.
All right. And let that be reflected in the minutes. Any further proposed revisions to the agenda? Are there any further proposed revisions to the agenda? Any further proposed revisions? Seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda as revised. is in order. Motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second? Second. Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. You now have before you the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any objection to the consent agenda as revised? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda as revised is approved. And all of the minutes were placed on the consent agenda, so that'll take us to announcements and comments by the mayor and members of the board. I have one unscheduled comment tonight, and that is just a reminder to everybody that thanks to the generosity of Travis Outlaw, the Starkville Police Department and elected officials will be handing out 600 turkeys to everyone in the community who wishes to come and claim a holiday turkey tomorrow, beginning at 9 a.m. at the Travis Outlaw Center. So hope to see many of you out tomorrow, and it is first come, first served, so get there early. I'd now like to introduce our newest employee, and that is Jody Hogue. It is my pleasure to welcome Jody Hogue to the Starkville Municipal Court as our newest deputy court clerk. Jody is originally from French Camp, Mississippi, and is a graduate of Eupora High School. She attended East Mississippi Community College, where she earned an associate's degree in healthcare data and office systems. Prior to becoming a City of Starkville employee, Jody was the receptionist at Walmart and an assistant manager for Dollar General. Jody is married to Josh Hogue, and they are the proud parents of 3 children, Anthony, JC, and Abby. During her free time, she enjoys spending time with her family, riding 4-wheelers, and baking. Jody and her family attend Meadowview Baptist Church in Starkville. Please join me in welcoming Jody. All right, that concludes my comments this evening. Are there any comments from the members of the board? Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 areas that I'm going to cover tonight, and I'm not going to take long. On Friday, December the 6th, here in our town, 2 of our employees with the Starkville Electric Department were injured. One of them very critically injured. Myself, along with our Alderman Vaughn, city clerk, and Mr. Kemp. Will you stand, Mr. Kemp, for me, please? Mr. Kemp so graciously took us to Jackson on Friday so that we could visit with Mr. Brown at that time. And we knew that in going down there, that we probably were not going to be able to see Mr. Brown because he was scheduled for surgery that morning. So we had an opportunity to visit with his wife, the daughter, and the little grandbaby. And it was a very, very nice trip. We again, visited with his family. They were so kind to us, and of course, we were kind to them. And we learned about his little 18-month-old grandbaby because Mr. Brown was critically injured. And his little grandbaby, who is 18 months old, she did not recognize her pawpaw because of his bandages. And upon letting her know that who he was, and her hearing his voice, how she embraced him. Alderman Vaughn, at my request, led us in prayer in the room, and it was a very emotional moment. And it makes you appreciate how the simple things in life that we take for granted. And at the drop of a hat pin, it can all change, because certainly when he came to work for our city that day, he did not know that he would end up in the burn center. And I'm happy to inform you tonight that Mr. Brown is at home in Columbus with his family after that ordeal. And let me further say this. Thanks to the heroic display by Mr. Floyd Bell, you all, his actions saved Mr. Brown's life, because he was hit with 7,200 volts of electricity here. So again, that's good news. And Mr. Kemp, thank you for your kindness in transporting us to Jackson on Friday. My second something is I want to acknowledge, well, Acting Chief Outlaw and Captain Nichols, will you please stand? Thank you all so much for inviting the board. We enjoyed coming by your Christmas party on Friday. You all, we had a great time with fellowship, and there was a lot of great food here. I want to thank all of your guys over there for the great work that they do, and again, thank you for inviting us. I also want to say thanks, and will you tell her that I recognized her, to Sergeant Laura Hines. She is like the Martha Stewart of decorating over there in your department. Thank you all so much. And the last something I want to recognize is Master Officer Freddie Bartley with our Starkville Police Department. I don't know if many of you all know him, but he and his wife has a project called the Clover Street Project. So we were invited to that at the Sportsplex on Saturday, where he recognizes and honors the youth here in the Golden Triangle area. Saturday night, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, because you were there, probably that room had probably about 400 area youth there. And they had an opportunity to sit and listen for their numbers called, and they won the most fabulous gifts. And if you were a grown person, hey, even you were on the list, because you could buy a $5 ticket and win $500 in cash. I just want to say thanks to Master Sergeant Freddie Bartley and his wife Sherry for the great work that they do in our community. And Pastor Stone was the keynote speaker for the program, and he delivered a great speech, and the title for them was titled Success. So again, thanks so much for everything that Mr. Bartley and his wife Sherry do for our community. I yield the floor at this time. Thank you.
Any further comments? Alderman Little.
Chief Man, if you'd like to stand too, I'd like to commend you and your fire department. I recently had the opportunity to put your guys to the test about a week ago. You may have heard about it. My wife put them to the test, actually. She left something on the stove. Sunday was a week ago. Fortunately, we had the alarm system who contacted you guys, and you responded promptly. And time we got the calls and got to the house about 30 minutes later, your guys had gained access through an unlocked door, fortunately, and had a huge fan going in the front door, sucking the smoke out, and had removed the pot. And they said it was flaming up as they looked in the kitchen window right before they gained access. So what could have been a bad situation was very minor, and we got over the scorched smell in just a few days. And I appreciate what you guys do, and it's not every day that you get to see them firsthand in work, in action, but they're to be commended. Thank you.
Any further comments from the members of the board? Alderman Walker.
One of the things I think is very important in our town is the appearance of what our town looks like, and how we represent ourselves. I think that's very important. Last night, early this morning sometime, we had a vandal on University Drive who defaced private property in a very prominent location that when I saw it this morning, I found it to be appalling. It's one of those things where we have a growing concern for vandalism and litter in our town, and we have to decide that we find that to be unacceptable, and we won't tolerate such acts. And I know the PD is actively pursuing, looking for this individual. I think it's important to note that it does seem to be a random act. But I think it's outrageous that we have to constantly deal with these types of issues, and we need to find a way to cease that once and for all, once we find that. So if anybody hears anything, please tell your friends to tell the police department so we can track these individuals down and come to some resolution.
Any further comments from the members of the board? Any further comments? Any further comments? Seeing none, we will now move to citizen comments. And any citizen wishing to make comments this evening may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Good evening to the mayor and board. My name is Alvin, Town Ward 7. To the Vice Mayor Perkins and Alderman Vaughn. And I would like to say to Alderman Vaughn, the mayor, I wasn't looking for yesterday's paper, but thanks for thinking it of me. It would not go to my head that we got to stay focused. We was looking, citizen was looking at the situation on Sunday. We are concerned about what the building will be, but we're more concerned about Griffin, the court parking, Griffin parking, and the Message Church parking. We're hoping that it don't be a hindrance to those areas. We would like for all of our department heads and all our employees to be real careful. That was a scary situation. We was hoping that they were wearing safety, but let's not take any chances. That's from the citizen to the employee. Don't take chances, because it don't take but snap a finger, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Seeing none, we have, Alderman Sistrum.
I don't really have any comments for you because I don't really believe that they would help very much. But as y'all discuss the Carver Drive project this evening, would y'all explain a bit, educate us out in the audience a bit about a handful of issues? One is if you could help us understand the variance in the costs in the bids that you got. And I know that y'all don't know how companies came to those bids, but there's a pretty big variance from $600 and something thousand to $900,000. If I were building a house, that would be a huge variance in estimates. Would you also talk to us about whether y'all have had any sort of conversations with people downstream from this project who will be impacted significantly by this project? And would you also talk a little bit, as you're having your discussion, about your plans to address flooding of houses in Green Oaks and the other many drainage projects that there are in the city of Starkville? Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sistrum. Are there any further citizen comments? Are there any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? All right, seeing none, we have one public appearance scheduled this evening, and that is public appearance by Park Commission Chair Dan Moreland and Parks Director Herman Peters to present the quarterly report. Gentlemen.
Well, this is our quarterly report we're required by law to do. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you that come to our park party that Lisa ate up most of the stuff. But, it was on December the 10th. We had so much food that Herman's still eating leftovers. but I think we had a good turnout. When we first started this, we had very few of our outside workers that would come to the party. We had one that did come this time, and he had a prior engagement, so I think we had a good turnout. Herman is gonna go over some of the projects. Now, our park, we are increasing every month on activities. Walking track is picked up because of the weather, and Herman has got some slides and stuff he's gonna do, so if you'll just bear with him, he'll get this cranked up.
Some of the activities that we had this session. It's coming. Slowly. Our youth flag football, we had 9 teams, only 8 teams listed. One sponsor came and got their pictures before we can get them scanned in. We had our adult flag football league back this year. The sheriff department won the league this year. The name of their team was 5-0. Music trail, we completed the project for our music trail. All 9 instruments are in at this time, which complete the entire project for the music trail. Basically, that's all that we had for this. It was our football league and the completion of the music trail for this quarter that we've done. Our current programs, we had for adult softball league, we had 34 teams, youth girls softball 25 teams, summer kickball 5 teams, youth flag football 9, adult flag football 5 teams for the year. We hosted 2 state tournaments, the U-Trip baseball tournament with 30-plus teams, Dixie Youth baseball with 20 teams, and our high school fast pitch tournament had 18 teams participating. In our aerobics and aerobic class and education classes, line dancing on Monday night, square dancing. We have it during the day. They have square dancing and line dancing, yoga class, and Zumba. One event that we're going to start, many of the staff here for the city have asked me to, and I'm going to start in January or February when things kind of slow down, is a workout class for the city employees. So we want to see some of you all there joining in with us, and it's going to be fun. I'm not that hard, but it's enjoyable.
Last year, or year before last, we had a self-defense class, and it turned out real good. We had all the way from 5 years old up to 60, 65. Herman taught it. He is certified to teach that, so we're gonna have that going again. Herman forgot to mention, I think, about the musical trail. It's totally handicap accessible. We have the pad down, rubberized pad, just like a track, and it's totally handicap accessible, and we hope to see the pilot club, we're gonna try to get them in on a different deal, on another project, because when they do it, it's like a pit bulldog. They take over and they don't turn loose. But I think the handicap is gonna be a good thing to the park. It's the weather, of course, right now it's keeping a lot of kids from using it, but the Pilot Club did a good job, and we're gonna try to get them another project coming up here shortly. Y'all have any questions?
Questions or comments for Chairman Moreland and Mr. Peters?
And let
Alderman
me say
Webb.
this, Chairman Moreland and Mr. Peters, I am so sorry that I left you off of saying thank you so much for, after attending 5 events last week, I don't see how I left you all out. Thank you so much. We had a great time with you all last Tuesday, and the food was, as the kids would say, off the chain. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Well, Herman said that you'd leave us off on purpose, and I said, no, she's just a little slow. So
That's what
we
Thank you.
appreciate y'all coming.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions?
Just have
Alderman Walker.
One question. I think the events that have been happening at the park have been excellent. Kids have been enjoyed the flag football. We had a good experience this year. We didn't win too many games, but they had a good time learning the game. So that was fun. As we move forward in this budget cycle, are you beginning to look at any ways to maybe reduce some of the costs in the park? Are you looking at any lighting for the sportsplex or anything that may help us save a little bit of management cost as we move forward?
We are increasing we're trying to keep it as low as possible. We're going to increase the participation costs by a few dollars to help out with those situations like that.
Any,
Okay, thank you.
any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
Next matter you have before you is the second public hearing on an ordinance deleting the administrative adjudication process ordinance and amending other ordinances that reference the process. This is a general housekeeping measure that will eliminate our former administrative adjudication process, which used to hear appeals for nuisance code violation. Attorney General's office has called that practice into question. So on the advice of our council, we are proposing a change where all appeals of nuisance code violations will now go to municipal court. That will be after a 30-day period where individuals have an opportunity to cure their fines without incurring municipal court fees associated with everything that goes to municipal court. Are there any questions or comments by the members of the board? Any questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Carter.
Again, just as we touched on last meeting, this will be something long-term that you'll start to see, talking about quality of life or the appearance of town, as Alderman Walker was mentioning earlier. This is a good thing. This is a really good thing to find a way to combat some issues of overgrown grass to trash, litter control, anything like that. So another step that we've taken in a positive direction for as far as beautification of Starkville. This is a good thing. So, thank you.
Further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll now move into public comment, and we'll hear those, hearing those wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment and those wishing to speak against. Each person will be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Each side will be recognized to speak for a cumulative total of 15 minutes. We'll go through that process until either no one wishes to speak or each side has exhausted their 15-minute allotment. Is there anyone now wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak for, against, or indifferent to the proposed ordinance amendment? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one, that will conclude the public comment portion of the public hearing, and we'll hear any concluding comments by the members of the board. Are there any concluding comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, that will conclude this, our second public hearing on the proposed ordinance amendment. And the next matter that you have before you is the consideration of adopting an ordinance deleting the administrative adjudication process.
So moved.
Alderman Maynard.
I would move approval of adopting an ordinance deleting the administrative adjudication process ordinance and amending other ordinances that reference the process of administrative adjudication as presented.
Alderman Maynard has made a motion to adopt an ordinance deleting the administrative adjudication process ordinance and amending other ordinances that reference the process of administrative adjudication as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of Alderman Maynard's motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The next matter you have before you is your request for approval of a resolution of support for major economic development project known as the Mill. The long and the short of this resolution is it's an indication of the city's support of the Mill project. Now, it does actually relate to legislation that will be proposed in the coming legislative session for the project, but that legislation relates to a transaction between the developer, Mark Castleberry, and Mississippi State University. This document is intended to indicate, as they go forth and lobby their position, that this is something the city supports. The legislation that they will be seeking is legislation that will allow the facility to be leased for a 55-year term from the university to the developer and not incur the normal issue of what's sometimes referred to as the binding successor doctrine, meaning as IHL enters a new term and it's on 5-year terms, then the next IHL board can review, change, or repeal any agreements that the board has previously entered into. But long and the short of this is, in order for the financial transactions to work, for the banks to be willing to lend on the project, they have to have assurance that this lease can't be altered over the 55-year portion of the project, because that is the asset that they're investing in. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval.
Alderman Maynard has made a motion to approve of a resolution supporting a major economic development project known as the Mill at MSU as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, you wish to speak on the merits? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
All right, let's do it by show of hands. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 6 in favor with 1 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is a request for approval to award Carver Drive, the Carver Drive Ditch Project to Precision Construction, who is the lowest and best bidder. This is the latest in a series of steps that go back actually several years, but most pertinent to what we're discussing tonight, go back to last spring when the board approved an order for the concreting of the channel and to seek approval from FEMA for the alteration of the channel. FEMA approved that alteration concept earlier this fall. It was subsequently designed, and this is our second bidding process. We had the first bidding process where we received only one bid of $895,000, and that exceeded the available funds to pay for the project. We subsequently rebid the project, and the lowest bid that we received was a bid of $677,000 from Precision Construction. My recommendation is that the bid be accepted, and the payment source would be $630,000 from a cap loan, which has previously been secured for projects at Bluefield, Carver Drive, and the Woodland Hills area. And the remaining $50,000 to come from the budgeted line item for Carver Drive that you put in your budget. I believe all the necessary steps have been taken to receive federal approval to go forth with the project, and we do have a means for paying for it and a bid available to do the project. Again, it is my recommendation that the project be approved. Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Perkins to approve of the award on the Carver Drive Ditch Project to Precision Construction, the lowest and best bidder as presented. Alderman Perkins, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Perkins, do you wish to speak on the merit?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Alderman Carver.
When you speak of available funds, exactly what are you talking on the cap? Is it 630 or, 'cause, I mean, in my opinion, this is pretty gross overestimation. Either our city engineer is estimating it to be too low, or, I mean, this is $200,000 more than the estimated project cost.
Yeah, it wasn't the city engineer that made the estimate. It was the contract engineer that did the design on the project. And project cost often does change significantly from the design estimate but to how the bids actually come in. Of course, the design estimate is just that. It is an estimate based on the design, and what you were getting in the bidding process is you were getting the actual market rate based on competitive bidding to do the work.
City engineer's not here, is he?
He's not.
So the available funds is a 630?
630 from the cap loan. and that's made available predominantly from the $600,000 CDBG grant that we got to build the lift station on the Bluefield Sewer Project. If you recall, there was a $1.5 million cap loan that was received about 1.5 years ago for projects in those 3 areas. And the $600,000 that is now going to be paid from CDBG funds makes available $600,000. And in conversations with Mr. Devlin, he does have room in the budget for $630,000 to be diverted to this project. Further discussion. Alderman Walker.
I'd just like to reiterate 2 points that I've made previously. I agree. I think that there needs to be remediation to both the channel and the bank stabilization along Carver Drive ditch. No question there's work that needs to be done there. But I think this project, like Alderman Carver said, initially it was $400,000 over budget. We're still close to $200,000 over budget. For this amount of money, for $630,000, without our $50,000, we could really address this problem in a much more, I believe, effective way that would not create a public health or safety issue. We'd have the opportunity to address with an alternative solution to go all the way up to Jackson Street and really fix the problem at its source and not have to deal with it midway down the stream. I'm afraid that this decision tonight is going to solve a very short-term problem of improving drainage behind Carver Drive ditch, but it's can create a long-term problem of continuing that drainage issue further down the stream that's going to cost the city significantly more funds that I'm not sure where we're going to pull those from. Beyond that, I think there's a serious public health and safety issue. The 6-foot deep open ditch with 1-to-1 side slopes creates a very dangerous situation during flash flood events. And I think I would really urge this board to consider waiting and look for an alternative solution that is going to give the city and the citizens right there a much improved product that's going to improve the quality of our life as opposed to maybe only marginalize it and make it slightly worse in the long term.
Further discussion. Alderman Wynn.
I like doing my homework before when I get my board package. And I'm going to read to you something that came from the recess meeting of February 19th, 2013. And let me say this before I read. I thank goodness for the action that the board members took at that time, because it brings us here tonight to be able to make this decision. It says, consideration of rescinding the order dated June 19, 2012 regarding work for Carver Drive ditch and utilize said funds to concrete the entire size and bottom of Carver Drive ditch to the extent of the approved cost of $175,000 by city staff. There came a discussion and consideration of rescinding the order dated June 19, 2012 regarding work for Carver Drive ditch and utilization of said funds to concrete the entire size and bottom of Carver Drive ditch to extend the approved cost of $175,000 by the city staff. Upon the motion of Roy A. Perkins to move approval of rescinding the previous board order relating the piping and covering of the remainder of Carver Drive ditch, and instead concreting the entire sides and bottom of Carver Drive ditch through work by city employees and our contractors with $175,000 in city funds. This work to commence upon approval of the project by the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency, known as MEMA, and our Federal Emergency Management Agency, known as FEMA, following the city's submission of notice of a letter of map revision as required. As part of the motion, the city attorney is authorized to submit any and all documents to MEMA or FEMA as needed in attempt to expedite review of this project. Duly seconded by Alderman Jeremiah Dumas. And before I read the names and tell you how they voted, let me say this. I commend those board members, some of which are no longer with us anymore, but let me go. And what I'll do is I'll start with Ward 7. Alderman Henry Vaughn voted yea. Alderman Roy Perkins voted yea. Alderman Jeremiah Dumas voted yea. Alderman Richard Corey, yea. Alderman Erie Parker, yea. Alderman Sandra Sistrom, yea. And Ben Carver voted nay. That brings us to tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I yield the floor at this time.
Further discussion. Any further discussion? Alderman
I'd
Walker.
say the only comment that I would have is I agree. I think it was a good decision by the previous board to set aside funding and a mechanism to deal with the ditch. But I think the key thing that you said in there was $175,000. Now we're talking close to $700,000. There's a significant difference in those two. I do believe that a reasonable alternative that would address fixing the problems that are real and necessary could be done much closer to that $175,000 than the $700,000.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Perkins' motion, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 5 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is a request for approval of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments as of December 13th, 2013. Discussion.
Say move.
Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments as of December 13, 2013, for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2014, as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
By a vote of 5 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. The next matter before you is the consideration of approving the advertisement of the sale of 2 2010 25-yard rear loaders and the advertisement for lease purchase of 2 25-yard rear loaders. Discussion.
How does this, if Ms. Gandy here?
Ms. Gandy is here.
Hey, can you just kind of tell us how this is rolling in your estimation of upcoming truck lease purchases and didn't we get a couple and one went down? Or can you give us some kind of history?
Actually, this arrangement, this was made by the prior administration, and what the then super department head opted to take a lower payment, monthly payment, and have one big balloon payment for both trucks. Starting in January, I think it's January 1st, Mr. Taylor? January 14th, there's a $150,000 balloon payment due on this truck. Now, we have the option to possibly refinance this $150,000, but we're looking at trucks that are already 3 years old that are on the road every day, and they would not be under warranty. And that's my major concern right now is the out-of-pocket expense that it's gonna cost us. We're already having to pay out-of-pocket expense on everything that we have, with the exception to the 2013s. So that's gonna give us now 4 more trucks with out-of-pocket expense. We could possibly sell these trucks or trade them in and have enough to actually pay off that $150,000, and that's what I'm asking for. It's for the board too, so that we can at least see if their sales would generate that amount of money. But I think if it does not, and Mr. Adams, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that if it does not, we will still have the opportunity to have a refinance. That would not be my preference. My preference would be to actually trade, get new trucks, and at least they'll be under warranty.
And this is just approving the advertisement.
Right.
So the board would still have subsequent action that has to be taken prior to executing the transaction.
Mr. Mayor, may I recognize?
Alderman Perkins.
Mayor, has this been, Ms. Gandy, thanks for the information. Has this been looked at closely by your office and the finance department, the director of finance administration? This is my first time seeing this in the packet, and of course, this is asking a lot for this board. And I would like to see this board table this matter until our first meeting in January. So I want to be able to get more information, make the proper decision. So I'm going to offer motion to table.
All right, is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Motion has been made to table. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Motion has been seconded. Motion is not debatable. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Gandy. All right, that concludes the open session portion of our agenda. We do have matters for potential discussion in executive session. Do I hear a motion to go into closed session to determine whether there's a need for executive session? Motion's been made by Alderman Little to go into closed session to determine whether there's need for executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Little, you wish to speak on the merits. Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. As your plat passes, we'll now go into closed session. I'll ask everybody to clear the room, and without objection, I'm gonna move us into a brief recess. Any objection, say none, we'll move into a brief recess.